Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be annotating my copy of Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. For those of you who are unaware, I have an annotation project where I am currentently rereading some of my favourite books and going through and annotating them. And how I annotate them depends on the book and how many times I've read that book before. Sometimes it's just adding tabs, sometimes it's highlighting things, sometimes it's a combination of both, sometimes I'm even writing in the books, but it just kind of depends where I am in my rereading journey for each individual title. So this is the first time that I'm rereading Running Wild, I think it's the first time I'm rereading it. And I first read this when I was reading the original The Simple Wild series. So this is the third book, or the third full-length book in the series. If you're unfamiliar with The Simple Wild books, they are the first two books and the novella follow Calla and Jonah. All of the books are set in Alaska, and in those books, Marie, who is the protagonist in Running Wild, is kind of the second woman, the woman in the background. She has been, in the original two books, she's been in love with Jonah for a very long time, and then Calla comes along and Jonah falls for Calla. And so while Marie is never a perspective character, we see her having to come to grips with the fact that her best friend, the person that she is in love with, falls for someone else. And in a lot of ways, we're kind of positioned not to like Marie because of that. But she was always a really intriguing character for me, and I'm so glad that she got her own book because this was my favorite book in the series. And I think in part is because Marie and I are the same age, and there's a lot of things that happen in the book, and I don't necessarily want the same things that she wants at the same point in her life, but there are things that I relate to as a woman in my late 30s that I think come through really clearly in Running Wild. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have a couple of clips of me annotating Running Wild. I've already finished it, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you about the book and sort of my process. So enjoy, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. How I've done my annotations in here, you will have seen at the start that I had some page flags, I had a highlighter, I had a pen. So at the moment I have the page flags and sort of what they stand for, or just on a transparent sticky note, which is not working really well, so I'm gonna have to figure out something else to do with this. And I also had to change one of the categories after I'd already written it. So the categories that I have are quotes, plot, feelings, relationships, and character, which are very, very standard for me. And I'll usually pop them somewhere inside the book. So I should say this edition of Running Wild is my Beyond the Pages special edition. It is signed by the author. It has gorgeous little photographs and title pages and things like that. You'll have seen that I did highlight the dedication just because I really loved it. And it was to anyone who loves spending time in this world as much as I do, especially those willing to go into this story with an open mind and a soft heart, because I think because of the way we're positioned to feel about Marie in the first couple of books, you do have to come into this one ready to learn her story. And she is a character who gave up her engagement to a man because she knew she was in love with somebody else, and he was never able to follow through on that with her. And so she was left heartbroken. And that, I think, is a really relatable experience for a lot of people, to fall for people who are not able to return it in the same way. And then to then spend all of your time around them. Like, she's best friends with Jonah. And she also, through this book, we see she has grown to become a friend of Calla's as well. And I think seeing the progression of how sort of her upset and her resentment has shifted into kind of that dull, grief and that hurt as you move forward in your life. And she knows she needs to move forward, and she knows that it's never going to happen. But there are moments where all of that hurt comes up again. I think that is entirely human. And by this stage in the book, she is very clear on the fact that she supports Jonah and she wants him to be happy. And she knows that Calla is his person. But it doesn't stop the fact that she feels like everyone around her, everyone's life around her is moving on without her. She has two sisters, one who has 2 kids, one who is pregnant. Throughout the book, they also become pregnant again. And that's something that she desperately wants, is she wants to have a family, but she just can't find her person. And it seems like everyone around her, it's almost being rubbed in her face that everyone else is finding happiness, getting married, having kids, and she's just stuck. So Marie is a veterinarian. She lives in Alaska, and in particular she has taken over her father's veterinary clinic. Financially, it's a bit of a challenge in that area. It's very remote, but mostly she works with sled dogs because it is a big mushing territory. In this book, she meets a guy who's new to the area. He's got a new team that he's bringing in to the, oh gosh, it's a big mushing competition in Alaska. Iditarod? I'm probably mispronouncing that anyway. And his name is Tyler. And at first they get off on the wrong foot because she's brought a dog that she's told is from his property, and she is malnourished and not in a good place. And so she's a bit of a crusader. She goes over there and she's ready to confront him. And it turns out that yes, he has taken over care for the dog, but she's escaped. And he's only just started working with the dog because he found her wandering around in the woods in that condition. And so tentatively, a trust begins to build between Marie and Tyler, especially when she's working with his sled team during the race. During the race, and when they're actually in the same vicinity, he begins flirting with her and she's flirting back. And they have this one moment, and then all of a sudden he grows very cold towards her, and she finds out that the dogs actually belong to his wife who died during childbirth. So there is content warning for that. So he is still grieving his wife. He was born in America, he moved to Finland with his wife and has come back with her dog team and is still racing them in her name, in her honor. And for Marie, this is just the worst thing that she could possibly hear, because suddenly she's fallen for another guy who is in love with somebody else. And the worst thing is, I think there was a section that I highlighted, I can't remember where it was, and she basically says, I can't compete with a ghost, I'll never win. I don't even want to try. And that's heartbreaking for her because she started to feel something and it was being returned. A lot of the frustration in this is because Tyler is dealing with his grief and he still wants to be friends, and Marie's gone, I can't even do that because that's everything that I've had to go through with Jonah. Like, that's just the place that she's in. And so like the emotional depth, I think, of this book, and the heartbreak of constantly falling for people who will never put you first, like that's something people go through every day. Their relationship has a lot of ups and downs. Mostly I was tabbing just because that's what worked for me, and I did specifically pick out tabs to match this beautiful cover. I don't often go with color themed tabs, and if I do, sometimes I do it as an ombre effect or something like that, but I actually went and picked them and used them the way I would traditionally use them in a series kind of annotation. I highlighted a few bits and pieces here or there, but not a lot. And aside from the dedication, I didn't really do any doodling or writing in the margins. It was nice just to be immersed again in the book and to read it again. I bawled my eyes out again in this book. This is one of a few books that I think consistently when I read it, I think it just packs such a powerful emotional punch, because I think it draws on a lot of things that women in their late 30s, with the pressures of society and what people think you need to be doing and what you feel like you need to be doing and maybe what you want, are all coming into conflict, and it feels like you're constantly being battered from all sides. And so whether or not you like Marie from the first couple of books, I think it's worth reading her story because I think it's a very relatable one. Also, it's set against Alaska. I'm a big fan of anything set in really cold places. I don't know what it is about me. I have absolutely no desire to go anywhere near those places, but I like stories set there. And I would 100% read more about Marie and Tyler. Also, it's a great one if you like dogs, because all of the characters in here are dog lovers. Doesn't mean that things don't happen to the animals. Animals are injured. She's a veterinarian. There's talk about surgeries with animals and animals that pass away or have to be euthanized and things like that. So be aware of that going into it. She's a veterinarian. That's part of her job. But there's also really, really positive, beautiful things with animals in this book as well. So yes, that is my most recent annotation project. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read Running Wild or the Simple Wild series, and if you haven't read Running Wild, if you're planning on picking it up. Otherwise, feel free to just talk to me about the book down below. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave paw print emojis. And I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.